next group up is Ameriprise. We really appreciate them coming here. What I love about today is we're talking to the field leadership, the folks who are really making things happen. And Manish, I don't have your bio in front of me, but I will take a swing. He runs all the field recruiting for Ameriprise. He's one of the best guys you can ever talk to about the industry. And like that miracle on 34th Street, remember the Santa Claus who would send people to send them to Gimbals for Macy's? I mean, if it's not right for you, he'll tell you. He's a straight shooter. And in my mind, that's about the best compliment you can have. So please welcome Manish and the Ameriprise team. Thanks for being here, guys. Thank you.
Just a little bit lower. All right. Oh, we're good. Yeah, we're good. Thank you. Good morning. I'd like to start off here by actually, on behalf of everyone at Ameriprise, actually tipping our proverbial hat to the folks at Advisorhub. And just as Tony covered a lot of content in a short amount of time, I think over the last several years, all of us in the industry are indebted to what outlets like Advisorhub have done. In a short amount of time, they bring information and content to all of us as a student of the industry that's timely, relevant, and very pertinent in terms of this industry that's in transition. And so for the work that all of you guys do, hats off, and thanks for also putting this venue together, and for all of you attending. We know time is of value, and we value that a lot here at Ameriprise, and we're privileged to be part of this discussion. As Tony said, my name is Manish Dubey. I've been here at Ameriprise for 12 years. I started, it's always great to be in New York City. I started my career 21 years ago in Lower Manhattan, worked at a wirehouse, worked at a bank, and then joined Ameriprise 12 years ago. I'm joined up here with some of my colleagues who you'll meet and talk to in a few minutes. Now, I know when you're looking at the agendas, you're thinking, wow, Ameriprise is going to parade up 4 senior leaders to basically fire hose you for 45 minutes on the Ameriprise value proposition. That's not our intent today. Our intent today is actually to build off of what Tony talked about in terms of some of the trends that are going on in the industry and give you perspective as to what we're thinking about those trends and how we're translating those and tackling those here at Ameriprise. Now, as the head of recruiting for Ameriprise, I can't go without at least a little bit of giving you some background on the firm, because one of the things I often get asked about is who's Ameriprise, where do we come from, what's kind of our background, and so I did think it would be appropriate to provide a little bit of a walk down history lane. I'm not going to go through a full narrative of our 120 years, but we were founded in 1894 by a gentleman named John Tappan in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Sir Tappan had a very simple mission, which was let's build a firm that is focused on taking the hard work, working money of Americans and provide them a confident retirement. That's been our mission from the late 1800s through where we are today. We've flown under a number of different banners. So you may know of the Investors Diversified Services Group, IDS, which was purchased in 1985 by American Express. We flew under the American Express Financial Advisor banner until 2005. Our chairman and CEO came on board in 2000, Jim Cracchiolo, who is Pat's leader, very flat organizational structure in financial services. It's very unique to have a leader who's been in a role for 18 years. We believe that consistency is a strategy, and Jim has navigated us through a lot of interesting and challenging times, as we all have lived through those. Speaking of which, in 2005, the new company was born, so Ameriprise. We took 2 words, America and enterprise, and brought them together to form the name Ameriprise. So that was where the brand came from. But over the last several years, obviously, that brand has been in a lot of evolution as we've really come to market. For most of our background and our history, we weren't in the business of bringing experienced advisors to our firm. We were a training firm. And so the vast majority of our 10,000 advisors actually came and started off not from anywhere else in the industry, but were homegrown through Ameriprise. Our chairman made that strategic shift about a decade ago and said, I'd like to bring more people in from the competition, and we've been doing that successfully. So I did mention I'm not gonna spend all the time talking about why, just for example, last year, about 340 practices did move to Ameriprise that represented about $26 billion in assets. So we are successfully bringing advisors over. And I think a big part of it is when you think about the companies from a structure standpoint, 75% of our revenues come from things that advisors do. We're a Fortune 250 company with a $20 billion market capitalization. We serve 2.5 million clients around the country through our 10,000 advisors who sit on 2 platforms. About 25% of them affiliate through the Ameriprise Advisor Group, where we have roughly 2,500 advisors in our 130 branches across the country that Pat O'Connell leads, and about 7,500 advisors who affiliate with us through our independent channel, a supported branded independent network, which is called the Ameriprise Franchise Group. We serve our clients. I mentioned 2.5 million clients, roughly 900. They entrust us with $900 billion in client assets, and that's just a little bit of a background of who Ameriprise is. But let me transition to the glamour shots that are up here on the screen and the panel that's in front of you. As we like to say at Ameriprise, we take our business seriously. We don't take ourselves that serious. So please entertain us as we'll have a little bit of fun with each other. But I think the first thing to do with the panel here is just if all of you could just quickly run through your backgrounds and what you do at Ameriprise, how long you've been in the business, and that would be a great way to start. Scott?
So me. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming. I did the 27-minute hellish commute from Scarsdale, New York this morning. So I'm happy to be here with all of you, and of course you went to the old guy first. So I started in the business in 1982. Some of you will remember the firm E.F. Hutton. I was a cold caller. I threatened Manish that I was going to go through the entire background in copious detail. I will not. Had an opportunity to move through leadership positions at Smith Barney, and as the firm grew and changed. The last job, I would say, was Scott Aubrey. We shared a title. I was Director of Business Development for the bank channel, left Citi in 2009, and had an opportunity to come work for Manish at Ameriprise as a recruiter. And now I'm fortunate to sit as the Regional Vice President for the Northeast, the upper right part of the country. There's 6 of me running the independent business.
Pat, got it. Good morning, everybody. Thanks so much for being here. So, as Manish said, I'm Pat O'Connell. I lead the Ameriprise Advisor Group channel, which is about 2,000 financial advisors across 125 plus branches. I'm also the leader of what we now call the Ameriprise Financial Institutions Group business, which is a business we bought and now have built out over the last 12 to 15 months with advisors in community banks across the United States. Similar to Scott, not as far back, but I started as a financial advisor in 1992, was an advisor for 6+ years, and then ran branches and regions and worked in different parts of the business, and then along with some of my colleagues, built our branch business really from scratch, starting in 2008.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Joe Exner. I lead the Northeast part of the region in Pat's organization, so our branch system, like Pat, like Scott, like nearly all of our field leaders, I started as an advisor. I think an interesting artifact of our firm is that nearly all of our field leaders, between the advisor and the CEO, started as FAs. We're proud of that. I started in 2000, have been with the firm since I started in the business in 2000, and I'm really happy to be here and share some time with all of you today.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Pat, I think I'll start with you. In terms of, you're at the executive leadership team level for our firm. One can argue over the last decade or so, it's one of the most challenging times in our industry. How can you talk about how Ameriprise has been positioned this time in terms of where you sit leading the firm?
Yeah, so Manish, as you said, so we have an organization that's a flat leadership structure. I serve on one of 14 members on the executive leadership team of the firm, reporting to our CEO and chairman. And in the meetings that we're a part of and the discussions that we have, my time is spent between strategic work, very tactical work, and building out infrastructure and platforms and where we make investments. But one of the things we've recognized is, Manish, you talked about the last 10 years and the challenges that we faced, but it also created some of the greatest opportunities in financial services that we could ever find. And we were fortunate in that American Express in 2005 announced the spinoff of Ameriprise, and at the time it was the 6th largest spinoff in U.S. business history. And we took that opportunity to, in essence, take with us what was really good and our value proposition that was built around advice, but build out a wealth management business that hadn't really been aggressively built out in the marketplace. So as much as in this time of the year, and now it being 10 years removed from the financial crisis, there's a lot of discussion about all the challenges and issues and carnage and everything else that took place. But the reality is, I think the best people in the marketplace are always thinking about how do you evolve, how do you change, how do you adjust, and navigate through both some of the more interesting times, some of the challenging times like 2008, 2009, as well as take advantage of some of the opportunities that come along during the good times as well. So I only have one slide with me today, and probably a good time to put it up there. You're asking me to talk about kind of an evolving landscape, and I use this slide just to talk about the reality of the business that we compete in every single day. And it doesn't really matter whether we're talking about demographic changes or we're talking about changes related to technology. The reality is the interests, the needs, candidly, the demands of the consumer, of the clients have changed a lot over the last 10 years. Some driven just by their interest in changing how they work with their financial advisors, and some driven by other industries impacting financial services. Think about the impact that a firm like Amazon has had in terms of how retailers how retailers consume, right, goods and services, and how their expectations about how they can get those goods and how quickly they can get those goods has changed. Well, that has clearly had an impact on how people think about and interact with and consume financial services. So our work has been around how do we evolve our value proposition in a very fast-paced environment that changes pretty quickly to, in essence, enable people to do business with us when they want, how they want, from wherever they are, from whatever device they're on. And when I think about consumers, not just the client, I'm talking about the financial advisors, those 10,000 financial advisors doing business every single day with us. The marketplace has changed a lot. And part of that slide talks about the regulatory environment, but all of you in this room have been in the business for a lot of years. We're in a very highly regulated business, and I would submit we should be. That regulatory environment continues to evolve and change. That always has to be part of how we're thinking about operating the business. But I think the bottom line is, what hasn't changed in all the years that I've been in the business is what clients are paying for, they're paying for leadership. You can call it advice, you can call it counsel, coaching, whatever you want to call it. I think those advisors, those firms that continue to evolve their advice value proposition connected to the advisor providing day-to-day leadership to their clients will gain market share. I think one of the traps our industry falls into is our industry sells fee-based accounts and SMAs and annuities and insurance, and we sell products. But that's not what the consumer's buying. I think what the consumer's ultimately buying is goal achievement, and they get that goal achievement through the advice they get from their advisors.
Awesome. Well said. Joe, let's move over to you. So as we think about timing in the industry, and I really love the quote, Tony, you used about the former Merrill leader who said, about if you can make a firm so great, why would anyone want to leave it? We know that that hasn't been the case. There's been a lot of advisor transitions over the last several years. Why would an advisor want to contemplate making a move now? Why is now a good time?
So I'd offer a couple of thoughts, Manish, to that question. And I think if all of us, whether you're an advisor or somebody that works with advisors contemplating a transition, my experience with advisors is they're incredibly good at working with their clients to provide leadership in the way Pat just described. And what we do when we do our best work for our advisors is we take financial issues and we separate the emotional side of it and we get down to the facts. We help our clients look through the emotional side of a financial reality and make a good decision cognitively. And we're really good at doing that for our clients. I think from time to time, advisors are less good at doing that for ourselves. So if you were to start with a white sheet of paper, clean slate, and say, under what conditions would I consider making a move? If I'm going to make a transition, under what conditions? Let's play along. Where would you want markets to be, folks? High or low? High. You said high. Why?
Clients are happy.
What do happy clients do? They follow you. They join you because nobody wants to be a first-year advisor again. So market conditions, despite yesterday, are still at record highs. You all agree? Is that in your control or out of your control? It's entirely out of your control and entirely in your favor. So there's one condition. Second condition, where would you want deals to be? In the history of Wall Street, has there ever been more guaranteed money in deals than there is today? The answer is no. Has there ever been more bonus money than there is in deals than there is today? The answer is no. So you have the highest deals you've ever had before, in your control or out of your control if you're contemplating a move. Out of your control. The market prices that. So clients have never been happier. Happy clients move. Deals on both sides, both the growth bonuses as well as the guaranteed money's never been higher, completely out of your control. Tony, I love your term Brexit. I hadn't used it. I won't steal it. If you are still at a protocol firm, is that in your control or out of your control? And how long does that last? So the guidance I'd give, the reason I think everybody who considers making a move now, and it's a really simple proposition, if you're not going to retire at your firm that you're at today, part of what I'd encourage you to do is look at the things that are entirely out of your control and are entirely in your favor and ask the question, how long will all of those be true? And that's the professional push that I offer to folks, and whether they end up at Ameriprise or they end up at your firms. I think folks who are looking right now are really smart, and I think those are the market conditions that we're in today.
Thanks, Joe. Scott, let's move over to you. Growth was something that Tony put up in one of his slides in terms of whether it's client acquisition for advisors per year, how do we grow our business. You spent a lot of time, I know we spent a lot of time with that across both of our businesses, whether it's on the advisor side of the business or the franchise side of the business. How do you support your advisors and drive growth in their practices?
Good question, Manish. So I'm going to illustrate an advisor that grew very effectively. And I'm going to say this happened in the independent side of our business, but it could have easily happened in the employee side of our business in the way we support our advisors. And I'm going to steal your quote, Tony. It's embrace change and race towards innovation. We are on the precipice of one of the greatest transfers of wealth in the history of the United States. This particular advisor, and I'm going to change the story a little bit because he happened to have been recruited by one of the people in this room. And at the time he came to the firm, and this was in 2009, he was doing about $300,000 in production. Today he's doing about $2.5 million. So I'm going to ask this question of all of you quickly. What's the biggest trend that's occurring in our business right now? And it's evidenced by this room right here. What's the biggest trend? What do you think? Agent advisor force. So this advisor had the opportunity to kind of think about, how do I really capture wealth and grow my business? So he looked at advisors that were transitioning out of the business as well as advisors transitioning into the business. So he had to decide between a very effective client experience through an organic growth strategy as well as an inorganic growth strategy where he was going to go out and acquire practices. So what he did first is he created an incredible client experience, which is a focus and direction of his business. At the same time, he went out and he started looking at practices. What it did is it created a buzz in his community, and he had an opportunity, because he created a great client service model, if you will, to bring in some small acquisitions along the way, bolt them into the client experience, and allow them to grow. Because of that, he created this great experience. But what he recognized is there was great leverage in bringing in his case, some junior advisors and some less junior advisors, and marrying them to advisors that were in the process of transitioning from the business. As a result, he had great growth. And obviously, he had an opportunity to capitalize on some of the capabilities that were brought in front of him by the firm and the opportunities that were there. But this was a tremendous growth engine over time. Now, we have a lot of advisors that grow. Some of them embrace all of the concepts of growth. Some of them take pieces of it. There's no requirement to grow, but certainly there's an opportunity right now if you can capitalize on kind of the growth and movement of money, and this advisor did a really good job of that.
Awesome. Joe, I want to come back to you. You provide some compelling information about why now is a good time. One of the things that, as we're working with advisors, what comes to top of mind is always, what am I going to tell my client when I leave about why I made the move? You've worked with a lot of advisors in making that transition. How do you kind of work with them or coach them on what do they say to clients when they're thinking about when they've made that move now to a new firm and why they made that move?
So the guidance I'd offer, and I'll give you a 30-second really quick story. I'm going to make up the name. The name was Pat. It wasn't. But in 7, 8, 9 years ago, I had a conversation with an advisor, and I called him up, and he had joined Ameriprise from a competitor firm, and he'd been there, 3, 4, 5 months, and this is very early on in our process, and I knew it wasn't going well. And I said, hey, Pat, how's it going? I knew the answer, but I said, how's it going? He said, I'm doing great, how are you? And my question was, why'd you join, just to get to know you, why'd you join Ameriprise? And he said the funniest thing, he said, well, I had 4 branch managers in 6 years. Okay, I got that, but why'd you join Ameriprise? Well, the last branch manager looked me in the eye and told me that deferred was the same as cash. No, I got that, but why'd you join Ameriprise? Well, then a bigger producer came in and my staff I said, I understand that, but why'd you join Ameriprise? And it occurred to me that what was he telling his clients when he called them to say, I made a move? He was talking about his comp, his office, his staff. It had nothing to do with the client. So whether you're an advisor considering a transition, or again, one of those folks in this room that helps counsel people to do it, why you're considering leaving will get you to meet with one of us or one of you. Why you're considering joining will get your clients to follow you. So whether it's us or whether it's all of you and the work you're doing as an individual or as a partner or a leader, help your advisors or yourself articulate not why you left, but why you joined. And my real guidance would be the end of that phone call that happens on a nervous Friday, better end with, I came here for you. And these are the reasons, and I'm really excited, and will you join me? Why you left will get you to a due diligence trip. It will not bring your clients over. Why you joined will. And when we do our best work with our best candidates, it is about why they want to join and making that real and making that in their own words and making it compelling that leads to the successful transitions we have. It's about joining, not leaving. And I think if you can help yourself to do that or help the people that you work with to do that, when we've done that really well, it's been a really successful model for us.
Thanks, Joe. Pat, as you talked earlier about client expectations are changing in this ever-evolving environment, and clearly we're probably on the front end, early innings of disruption in the financial service industry. As we think about that ideal client experience, how would you, I know we do a lot of research with clients, with advisors. As you sit where you sit, how would you articulate what that ideal client experience is and why that's important?
Yeah. Let me start my comment by actually building off of what Tony shared, because I wasn't planning on bringing my notes up here, but going through Tony's presentation, I was scribbling on different key things from his presentation. And let me start with the first one. And the first quote I wrote down was one at the bottom, which said, I think Scott may have mentioned it, it was, whatever happened to make your firm such a great place that no one would want to leave. And I actually think you could modify that to say, whatever happened to making your practice such a great place that no one would ever want to leave. And your clients would be such raving fans that that's where all your new clients would come from, would be referrals. So I start there because I'm happy to talk about client experience and some of the work we've done there and technology, and I'll get to that in a second, with also based on one of Tony's quotes. But when I think about our journey the last 12 years, I always tell people, don't think of Ameriprise as this 125-year-old firm. Think of us more as this 12 or 13-year-old incredibly well-funded startup, because that's how we operate the firm. That's how we think about things with the opportunity we had 12 years ago when we left American Express. But part of our focus has been how do you drive an experience where advisors are so satisfied and growing at such a strong rate that in spite of a very competitive environment, they don't leave. And that's what's driven a retention rate in the industry that's 94, 95% pretty consistently year in, year out. That's helped. I think the same thing applies to advisors operating their business every day. Is part of that client experience has to be, how do you create such a deep, meaningful relationship with clients? Of course, through asset management and financial advice and the like, but through a model that engages clients in a way that they not only will never leave, but they're raving fans of what you do and refer at a really high rate. The other quote that I picked up from Tony's presentation, there was a quote on one of the slides that says, ignore the next generation at your peril. And I think there's a lot to be said about that, because no matter how good of a financial advisor you are, as your client base ages, and those clients go into net outflows, they go into net outflows because you've done your job. Right? They're asking for their money back, not through an ACAT where they're moving the entire account, but they're asking for their money back to enjoy their lifestyle, maintain their lifestyle, achieve the goals that they want, because you've helped them to accumulate wealth. So I think there's a lot to be said about needing to always be mindful of that next generation, evolve your value proposition. But when I think about where we've spent a lot of resources and a lot of time, and I'll use a real life example, I think this issue around ignoring technology can be at your own peril. Because I think about how advisors worked with clients, how I worked with clients 25 years ago, 20 years ago, and how our advisors worked with clients 15, 10, and even 5 years ago, and where it is today, it's changed dramatically. So let me give an example of that. So I said earlier, one of the things we did with being able to control our own capital, invest in the business, was we wanted to create an experience where financial advisors, knowing that they're incredibly mobile, both in their personal lives and their professional lives, could do business wherever they were, whenever they wanted, from whatever device they wanted to be on. The reality is that also applies to the clients. So I use this experience, I use my own experience. So as a client, for 16 years, my wife and I lived in Connecticut. Our financial advisor is based in Philadelphia. We're very satisfied clients. very engaged, manages the vast majority of the wealth, terrific service model, and for 16 years, we have not been to our financial advisor's office. About a year ago, we made a change closer to home from where we grew up, and I live between New York and Philadelphia now, and I'm about 40 minutes from my advisor's office. And I don't plan on going to my financial advisor's office now that I'm 40 minutes away. Because the reality is, whether I'm here in New York or Minneapolis or someplace else in the United States, my experience as a client, same thing as your clients experience this, lives are more and more complex, very busy, people are on the move. So the vast majority of our service meetings are done by using technology. We're reviewing performance, portfolios, financial advice, plans, what have you, but using Skype, WebEx. It works wonderfully. It engages the client relationship. So I share that because some of the work we've done over the last 5 years, and I think actually there might be one other slide that just kind of gives a visual of it, is it just simply, we've been working on what we call a premium client experience. And there's 3 pieces to it. There's transactional ease. That's a little bit about, as I talk about how you do business, wherever you want to do business. Think about how you use your phone today and how much business you do, right, using your cell phone. But transactional ease is as simple as this. Transactional ease is when you want to check in for a flight, the vast majority of you do what I do, and I travel every single week, and that is you do that through your cell phone. It's a very simple transaction to do, and you use technology to do that. This idea of exceptional service, that's that experience, creating that end-to-end experience. Some of it's by face-to-face, some of it's leveraging technology. That's creating an experience where clients rave about the engagement you have with them, but that doesn't always have to mean it's a face-to-face experience. He's 35 years old. He's built a book from scratch. He actually came up through our novice program. It does about $5.5 million in production today. So think about that growth rate, 12 or 13 years from scratch. Pretty consistently brings on 50 to 60 clients. He made a decision in the last 12 months, and he sees maybe 20 appointments a week. He can see more if he does all of his meetings through WebEx. He can take a 45-minute meeting and make it 35 minutes. He started experimenting with it and testing it and realized his clients appreciate it because the drive time, they cut that out for themselves. Now, I get it. Some clients, we will always have a bricks and mortar presence. We need branches. We need premium space. We need the offices to be very, very nice spaces because some clients want to do business face-to-face. It's still a face-to-face business. It always will be. Our value proposition is we go to market through our financial advisors. And that's the case because, again, back to that point I made around leadership. But that third component around expert advice, the reason we added that in there is because our business is not a simple business. It's not nearly as simple as checking in for a flight or booking a flight. There's complexity involved. And as soon as you have complexity in a situation, you need a human. So the work that we've been doing as an organization is how do we take that entire experience and make it one where the client can get the type of expert advice they need in a way that they can consume it so it's not overwhelming, enabled by technology to benefit both the client and the advisor. What does that equate to? A better client experience, and what we've seen year over year is a growth rate in an advisor's practice that is a differentiator in the marketplace.
Yeah, that's awesome, Pat. Scott, in terms of, we talk about our various platforms here at Ameriprise, and you're on the independent side. What are some of the things that gravitate advisors to being on the independent platform, and what do you kind of think makes what are the attributes of a good independent-minded advisor?
First of all, I'm getting very excited about the platform, so you're really getting me pumped up, Pat. So I'm going to ask you to think about this one a little bit differently. I listened to Tony's presentation in the beginning. He talked about aggregators. So I'm going to suggest that a different paradigm for how we consider the independent model of our business. And I'm going to say one's a vendor, one's a partner. And there's different advisors that make sense for each. And as I think Tony said early on about Manish, and I think all of us represent this, is we'll tell you whether it's the right fit or not. So a vendor relationship. So think about that one a minute. For a vendor relationship, you supply the product, you supply probably the trading platform, you might supply the statement technology. It really makes sense for the kind of advisor, and some of you may be this advisor that loves to get up and read about the details of the business. You enjoy the compliance policies. Even though you may have a compliance officer, you're going to read it, you're going to understand it, it's how you focus. You really enjoy this idea of researching the exact contact management program that makes sense for you and your practice. And these are things that kind of excite you every single day. You may have your own trading philosophy, and you really don't need a national presence around you. And there, for some people, that vendor relationship makes a lot of sense. The second paradigm shift is towards a partner relationship. So a partner relationship is a little bit different. And I'm going to say a partner relationship because it's not a client, it's not a customer. It's a relationship of mutual responsibility. So in a partner relationship, the partner has a point of view about the business and where it's going, and directionally how to take advantage of it. That's important. Number two, they have a compelling path to that growth. How do you get to it? How do you achieve success? How do you get to the millennials, to Tony's point earlier? Number three, and I think this one's really, really important. I'm going to relate this to my own personal experiences with physical fitness. I'm generally a pretty disciplined guy, but I like the idea of having a program that forces me to do it, or a personal trainer. I know what it takes to stay fit, but I like the idea of someone there. So I'm going to say number three is having the resources, typically human, and you're looking at some of those human resources up here, that can help you determine your path to growth and help outline a direction of how do you create a great client experience. And number four is an optional bullet point. Number four is a culture that will motivate you and that you'll enjoy being a part of. And I think all four of those components will make the difference between a partner and a vendor. And in some cases, a vendor is the perfect relationship. And you know the kind of advisor, or if you're the kind of advisor that fits there, I'm going to suggest this, the partner relationship. I wake up every single day trying to think about how do I improve the lives and the quality of the businesses of the 1,300 advisors I have the privilege to lead. So to me, at Ameriprise, the opportunity is a partner relationship. There are other firms in this room that represent a partner relationship. The advisors that I think take part in it, it's the reason we have way above average growth.
Thanks, Scott. Pat, as you hear Scott talk about the independent side of the business, obviously you were part of the decisions as we decided to have two platforms. As you think about advisors looking at affiliating with either channel, how do you approach that? Why do you think it's important to have choice in how advisors may affiliate?
Listen, I think when you can have a firm that gives people the choice as to how they affiliate based on what their goals are professionally, based on what they're trying to accomplish, based on what they love doing, or maybe not be as good executing upon, that's good for everybody. So, why did we go down the path of building out a branch business 10 years ago, which was counterintuitive because there was this move towards independence? The reality is the majority of the revenue is still in the industry driven through a branch type of network. No different than the last year and a half or so, the work I've been spending a lot of time on building out a financial institutions business, because the reality is the value proposition in the bank space, there's still a tremendous opportunity to elevate that value proposition, which would create a lot of growth in that space as well. So for us, it's multiple platforms, choice as to how you affiliate, and I know lots of people. I have family members who are great producers in this business that operate independent businesses. And I also have advisors, great examples of people that were independent, that said at some point, matter of fact, we just had one in Melville, New York, who made a decision, he's been a great independent producer for 25 years and said, I'm at a point in my career where I do $3 million in production, but I don't want to deal with benefits and real estate and technology networks and phone networks and payroll and retirement plans and everything else. I'll let the firm take care of that, and I'm going to do what I do best. So in our operation, because of how we're set up, that advisor can make a transition, and it's not this monumental leap. It's actually, to a certain extent, a flip of a switch. So from my perspective, giving people choice acknowledges the fact that people's careers, people's interests evolve and change over time.
Do you get the sense there's competition between the two channels?
No, I actually think, on the contrary, I actually think they work in harmony together really, really well. And actually, candidly, I think they work as a really good checks and balances against each other, because the value proposition in the branch business has to be strong enough right? That advisors see the reason why to be in a branch network. When they have a choice, they can go in an independent network. And the value proposition for the business that Scott leads has to be a real strong value proposition that says we can support you and help you, and to use your term, partner with you to help you grow your business, knowing that there's a lot more that goes into running an independent business. So I don't think they compete in any way at all. I think they actually support each other, and maybe at worst, work as a form of checks and balances to make sure the value propositions are really strong across all the platforms.
Kind of a rising tide floats all boats.
Yeah.
Joe, you work with advisors a lot, and technology, clearly we've spent a lot of time talking about just where technology is, where it's going, how it's changing our lives, not just in our industry, but like I said, our lives.
Yeah.
As you think about working with advisors and them integrating technology in their businesses, and you see that going, how do you see them embracing it or kind of moving through that at the local level?
So I think about one of the examples Scott used on technology. How many of you have a smartwatch on? I bet the vast majority of this room right now could say what your heart rate is. If you're really committed to your Apple Health app or to your Garmin watch, did that make you closer or further away from your doctor? Right? You care more about your health. It doesn't mean your doctor becomes irrelevant. I actually think that commitment to your health probably brings you closer to your medical care. I think technology does that for us in our practices as well. I think the debate that the trap some of us set up sometimes is, does technology make me as the advisor irrelevant? I actually think our approach to technology is it makes people closer to their goals. It makes them closer to what they have, their progress. And our belief is that actually the greatest way to have a tighter connection with your clients, not the greatest, a key way, is through technology. Pat referenced checking in online. Folks, how many of you are CLEAR members? You know what CLEAR is in the airport? So most hands. And the reason you did that is TSA was too slow. The fast line wasn't fast enough. So now you do CLEAR. If I said everybody in this room's on Amazon, am I in the ballpark? In fact, let's do this. Who in this room, since we've been talking, bought something on Amazon today? There's always one. Every time somebody literally bought something on Amazon. How long does it take to get something from Amazon? Worst case, 2 days. If I said all of you were Prime members, am I close? 2 days was too long to get something you didn't know you needed, but Amazon said you should own it. And if I need to own it because Amazon said so, I better have it tomorrow via drone. We still have advisors. There are still folks who try to say, no, my clients actually like to go to the video store, wait for it to come back because there's only 4 copies. Hopefully the guy before rewound it, and then I'm going to make sure I rewind it so I don't pay a 50-cent fee. Somebody was the last Blockbuster trying to make money. You all know that Netflix approached Blockbuster and said, we think we've got something here. You guys might want to buy us. You know what the price was? $50 million. What did Blockbuster say? That'll never work. People love coming to the store. So now you have Netflix, you probably have Hulu, you've got your on-demand, because the consumer today wants what they want, when they want it, and they can get it everywhere else. And somehow this industry still thinks it's different. We still think clients will take multiple statements, multiple logins, go to different places, and that great client service is you're willing to send an overnight. Because it's really convenient to find the overnight back, isn't it? Clients love paper. They never use it. And it doesn't force you away from your advisor. It makes you closer. I'll give you 2 other examples. If you travel a lot, if you still have to go to the hotel to get your room key, I want to introduce you to a thing called the Hilton app and Bluetooth, and you don't have to talk to a human being. You get off a plane late. Who's the crew in front of you? It's 17 flight attendants and 4 pilots, and their reservations are screwed up. You're 18 in line, and there's 1 person at the front desk. And if you find yourself in that space, you did it to yourself. Why do I stay at a Hilton every single time? Because I can pick my room. I don't have to talk to a soul. I walk to the room, I hit a button, I walk in. It's made me more loyal to Hilton, not less. Does that make sense? So I'm trying to give some examples, some context. And what I would offer to you is, in order to do that, when you think about who you partner with, when you think about how you're going to grow, the cost to do that well and securely is incredible. You've got to have scale. The partner, the firm that you're going to work with has to have scale. if your asset class definitions are going to be the same in your financial planning tool as they are in your asset allocation tool, as they show up on your statements. If academic integrity matters to you in the planning process, the costs are exorbitant. And every day that a firm or an individual waits, the barrier to entry gets higher and higher and higher. So the reason we keep dwelling on this isn't instead of, it's in addition to. And when we think about the business that we run, we think it's critical. It's not a necessary evil. It's not an ancillary benefit. We think it's becoming a competitive advantage.
All right, last one's jump ball. One actionable idea for the audience here in terms of takeaway that take back to whatever the perspective is, whether it's an advisor, whether it's helping advisors, just a takeaway that you'd share with the audience.
Want that one? Yeah, I'll start. We look at, just like anybody else out there, there's a lot of research and consumer insights and everything else. If you're a financial advisor sitting in the room or you lead financial advisors, every piece of data that we have clearly shows, and it's been this way for a long period of time, that when you engage a client in an advice-based relationship, I'm not talking about selling them a financial plan, I'm talking about engaging that client in an advice-based relationship that includes asset management, but goes beyond asset management, they do far more business with you than those clients that are not engaged in those relationships. They are far more satisfied. They attrite at half the rate. They refer at a meaningfully higher rate. So sometimes the best leadership is when someone can take it and just simplify it and say, this is really what matters. In a marketplace where there's a lot of different ways to go to market, I think a very dangerous thing is when a financial advisor cedes control of the agenda to the client and doesn't actually truly believe in their value proposition and what's the right way to go about serving a client. If there's one piece of information, one nugget I'd give to you is really understand what your value proposition is, truly make sure you're committed to it. And from the seat that I sit in looking at all the data, all the consumer information, satisfaction, revenue, retention, everybody wins when you engage that client in an ongoing advice-based relationship that includes asset management but goes beyond asset management. The advisor wins, the firm wins, I think the industry wins, and most importantly, the client wins.
So I'll tie into what Pat said because I think it's really important to think about right now. As you give advice to advisors, or if you're an advisor, we have to realize that we can't compete on the basis of price at all. Someone will always have a better price. We don't have any unique product. I can tell you we have lots of really good ones, but it's not any better than anyone else. And we certainly don't outperform because someone always figures out a way to do it better for less risk. What we have to focus on, the process by which we solve a client's problems and help them achieve their long-term goals and objectives. And so as an advisor, as we see this business shift, I would want to be really tight on my process for helping a client achieve their long-term goals. I would articulate it personally through a written plan. I personally do that myself, and that's how I would charge my fee. I'm not suggesting that the business is shifting there right now, but this is an opportunity to better understand the client first, analytically, develop goals with them, and hold them on track to the goals in their lifetime so that they can achieve them. That's how we have the ability as a business to differentiate ourselves.
Joe?
I'll offer one. Whether you lead a team, a branch, an RIA, whatever organization you have, make having fun a key activity. Make it something that you bring to your organization every day. I don't care if it's an independent culture, if you're part of a larger team, you're part of a big organization. Let that be a hallmark of what we do. This business is challenging, it's tough. What I have learned in the times I've had the most fun is the leaders I've had, the leaders I've worked with that care about their people enough to have fun and make it important. Find the time, really stress it, actually schedule it in. Those are the cultures that don't lose people. Those are the cultures that I think help their advisors, their leaders, their teammates stay emotionally competent when things are good and when things are bad. So my one thought that I'd leave you with is make fun part of the way you do business.
Awesome. Tony, I think we've tried to stay true to our 45 minutes. I'm not sure if there's any other, if we've got time for any questions in the audience or if there's anything else that you'd want us to.
I always like to take one from the audience at least.
Okay.
Pat, you mentioned the people who like to have a WebEx meeting. Have you all done any analysis on the demographics of people who prefer WebEx or electronic meetings?
It's a good question. So if you didn't hear the question was, have we done any demographic work around who prefers WebEx meetings versus those who are not? So we have. Let me kind of give you the headline. The belief is that, well, the people who want meetings like that are below, draw a line, below 40 years old, right? I'm just making up a number. And you always have to be careful because sometimes your reality or your perception is your reality, and your reality is wrong. So what we have found is with clearly the person who's used to using more technology more frequently picks it up a little easier. But what we've also found is the clients, whether it's and listen, I'm a couple months away from 50, so whether it's the 50-year-old or the 60-year-old or 70 or the 80-year-old, with a little bit of coaching, and I'm talking about a little bit, they pick it up very quickly. So what we've learned is we've actually had to help our advisors and our leaders is don't fall into the trap of thinking, oh, my client is fill in the blank, not educated enough, doesn't have a technology background, is too old, right, for the use of technology. Our information, our studies show that whether it's how they access their statements, account aggregation, digital-enabled advice, or, to your specific question, doing meetings screen to screen versus face-to-face, you can drive it. So.
I think we only had time for one, right? All right. Unfortunately, we've got to shut it down. I want to do a few things. I want to thank, obviously, my esteemed panel, and on behalf of all of us here at Ameriprise, we wanted to provide you with some information today that we thought was valuable, thought-provoking, in terms of where we think the industry is going. Clearly, we as a firm are very prideful about what we do. We feel like we're in a great position to do it, and we'll be here for the rest of the day. But again, thanks to the panel, and thanks to all of you for your engagement for the session. I'll turn it back over to you, Tony.